Yes.
Here.
Mrs. Khanna here.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Stanley. Mrs. Young. Mrs. Penny.
Here.
Thank you, Young Foreman.
Thank you. Okay. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Berkeley Heights Board of Education was given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act as follows. On October 16, 2023, notice of the Board of Education meeting schedule was sent to the Star Ledger, the Courier News, and also provided to all schools, PTO presidents, the BHEA president, and posted at the administration building. A copy was also provided to the public library and filed with the municipal clerk. Can we please stand for the flag salute? Okay, good evening, everyone. So a couple of things before I hand the presentation over to Mrs. Patricia Reese. I just wanted to clarify something. So I got an email from a couple of board members regarding the revised agenda. So the original notice of the agenda went out on October 16th. The revised notice of the agenda actually went out on October the 31st to the newspapers, and it was also updated on the website. So I just wanted to let everybody know that the sole reason for adding the approval of the board goals was purely as an option. I just wanted to make sure that if the board decided with all the discussion that they were ready to adopt them, that we had it as an option. That doesn't mean we have to adopt the goals or approve them tonight. It really is just purely there as an option if the board feels comfortable to move forward with that. So I just wanted to clarify that. And secondly, the other thing I just wanted to state was I hope you all enjoyed the conference. I learned a lot of things from it. And one of the things I learned from the conference with one of the sessions I went to was the presentation was, in order to have an efficient meeting, it's quite important to have a purpose statement ahead on either your committees or your agenda. So I just wanted to state tonight that, just to remind everybody, that the purpose of this meeting tonight is to determine, to discuss, and to set board goals. If we are all comfortable with that and we feel we're all on the same page and we want to approve them, we have the option to do that as well. If not, we can always prove them at a later stage. So I just wanted to just reiterate to the board that tonight, that is the option. So, you know, we don't have to approve them if we don't want to. And I just want to make sure that we keep on track. It could be a very long meeting. So I'm going to try and keep everybody on track so that we establish our goals, work, discuss, and basically keep in line with what the purpose of this meeting is. So with that said, I would like to hand it over to Mrs. Patricia Reese, and she's going to do a presentation, and then we're going to have a discussion. All right.
Thank you, Angela. I would like to say it's like old home week, because Nick Paleo, when I was on my board, was our interim BA back in the day in Somerset County. So you're in good hands with Nick, I will say. Absolutely. He helped keep us on course as we're going through. You were there for one superintendent. I mean, we were going through superintendents a lot, but anyway, you're in very good hands with Nick, I have to say.
Thank you. I didn't even send you a check this month.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. And he's from North Brunswick, and my mother was the director of the North Brunswick Public Library, and now my daughter works in the North Brunswick school system. So there's lots of 6 degrees of separation here. But anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge that.
So Patricia, do you want, so Robert, do you want to move over there so that we can see the presentation? Do you want to move over there?
It's up to you, however you want to go. You can see the one here.
Okay, no, I'm just saying, if you wanted to see that one, you comfortable? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
The purpose tonight is to just give you a brief outline, because we've done this one other time, of what the purpose of the board goals are, and then hopefully have the discussion to determine what your board goals are for the 2023-2024 school year. And as Ms. Penna said, many boards adopt them the night of but they have the discussions, but many don't because they want to go back and talk about it in committee and come up with your action plans on how to achieve that. So it purely is up to the board how they would like to do that tonight once we get to that point. So I talked about in prior meeting, the board goals being the foundations for improved governance, continued improvement of the board. Board goals simply are about how you govern yourself. They are not the district goals. They should align with the district goals, but they in some manner, but they're not the district goals. It provides for accountability of the board. And we talked about this, but tonight, I know that you adopted your district goals at your last board meeting. So tonight, hopefully we'll come up with some board goals. Again, it's all about the processes and tasks that are owned by the board. And a good place to start with that is looking at the district goals, and I just took them by title. I did not put them in there because they're extensive and they're really very good. But your district goals have to do with communication, a green initiative, DEI metrics, BHTA, I wrote that down. Threat assessment team, which is important, and then about student achievement. So you want to look at what your board can do to be more effective in supporting the district goals in your areas of responsibility, which are listed here: policy development, oversight, ensuring a comprehensive curriculum and instruction, and communications, both amongst the board, with the administration, and also with your community. That's what the internal and external mean. And then it all starts, a good place to start is with your board self-evaluation. I hope you've had an opportunity to review that. Just a few questions. If anybody has, does anybody have an idea of what they thought the most interesting observation in the composite evaluation? This, communication. That I did pick that up, communications as well. There are a few things that I picked up, but I looked at a lot of these, and I'm just curious if there's any that anybody else picked up, or was any strength identified or pointed out in your evaluation? I think your strength is that you've done the evaluation this year. That is really, I mean, many boards, is because it's not required, it is a best practice. And many boards simply don't do it, but it really does help the board focus on things they're doing well and things they need to improve upon and how to move forward from that. So I think this is a great start from that. Is there one area in the board self-evaluation that you think should be a priority for board development next year, or board training? I know we've heard communications.
Communication is definitely one of those, and I think that aligns with the district goals as well,
Yeah.
because the superintendent has that on the district goals. Right. So in order to align with those, we definitely need to work on different avenues of, not so just different avenues of communication. I think there's more we can do to do with that.
And that's an important thing for many boards is communications. As I said, both amongst yourself, you need to be able to communicate well amongst yourself with your administration, and then with your community, because the boards are kind of in between. You're the spokesperson for the district to the community, but you're also the spokesperson for the community to the district. So some of the questions to consider as we go through is what professional development would assist you in improving the board's governing skills. What development, is there any professional development that was identified in the board self-evaluation, which I think we said one of which was communications. And what, if there's anything that can help you, that you need to help you support the district goals. And then when we get to the end, do your board goals support the district goals?
Patty, I think one of the interesting things that I noticed in the conference, and I think it might come up for discussion tonight as part of the board goals, was one of the sessions I went to talked about the board as a whole doing training, make it part of maybe a board goal. And I know we can look at different avenues and how we want to do that. But it was an interesting, when I went to, I think the presentation I went to was called Your Governance Toolbox. And they talked a lot about, getting boards to not just individual boards, individual members, but the board as a whole being responsible for doing training and sessions, and somehow maybe find a way to add that into, to the, I don't know, to a public meeting or whatever it might be, to find a way to get the training in as a whole.
Right. And I put in your packets a list of a sampling of programs and trainings that NJSBA provides. Remember, you pay dues to NJSBA, so those are all part of what like me being here tonight, that's part of what you do, of what your dues covers. So it certainly is a way to do trainings. Although trainings are do not qualify under executive session, so they would always have to be noticed as a public meeting, but they don't have to be tacked on to a board meeting. It could be a special meeting. I'm going into a district on Saturday morning for a couple of hours to do a board retreat there. So there are those, we're flexible in when I can come and provide based on, what your needs are to come in. So, and there are, if you look on our website for, as Andrew said, we have not only board members, levels of board member certification, but certification for boards of education. And there's a timeline and there's a guidance for that. And then, and the majority of your board has to participate, including your administrators, superintendent and BA need to participate in that. And it's a rolling 4-year cycle, I believe. It's all identified, but there's different things you tag onto. And if you do enough of the trainings and you get all the points and hours that you need, the board gets to be declared a certified board, and that you get a nice plaque that you can put in the board office. But what that shows not only to the board members, but to your community, that you were invested in doing professional development and learning how to govern and govern better for your students and your community. And so there is that. So yes, there are boards that do become certified. There's 2 levels of certification. There's the board certification, and then there's the Carol Larson Master Board certification. But more information on that is on our website under Board Member Academy. If you go to trainings, you will find the drop down for Board Member Academy, and it'll identify that what that is as well. And some boards do make that a board goal, to be proactive in training, whether or not their goal is to get to a certification, but to also just show that they're invested in professional development.
As a first-year board member, not even a full year, the governance one was great. I learned so much, but I learned so much more last week at the workshop. I mean, everybody at this table was there and we all took different classes, but I was surprised to see, well, not surprised, but there was a lot on communication. It wasn't just a Berkeley Heights issue.
Yeah.
It was an issue throughout the state on planning and board and communication. And the fact that all of us at this table were there and invested in that shows the dedication that we are to move forward in this.
Yes.
Yeah. And the timing is good because I learned so much more. It makes me better educated now for board goals.
Right. And it's fantastic that you were all there, and those credits will go towards your individual board certifications. that's why we scan people in and into different meetings. But you're right, there's communications and other, when you go to something like that, a regional or statewide program, you will talk with other board members from around the state, and you will see that your issues are not just here. They're certainly different and on different levels in each community, but communications has become an issue throughout New Jersey, as well as other things. And it's really great that you all went to workshop. I think that really shows a commitment. I know I saw a couple of you there. Robert was in one of the sessions I was doing. Anyway, as we go, other things to consider as we go back into board goals. What can this board focus on to enhance your performance as a board? And what can you do better to support the administration in achieving the district goals that you all approved at the last meeting? Can you hear me? Yeah. The downside of doing a lot of presentations last week at workshop is my voice is still coming back. That's why I have cough drops just to
I can get right in there.
yeah. Okay. Okay. This slide just shows some examples of board goals, just to kind of get the juices flowing. Promote all district goals by providing the support and resources necessary to achieve those goals. Review your bylaws to review and revise. I should have rewritten this one because I did this too fast. Review your bylaws and revise to ensure that they reflect your current practices. And this was one that Angela had talked about. To improve board effectiveness, hold no less than 4 training sessions with NJSBA regarding board governance through whatever time frame that you want. You can certainly do more than that, but that's a relatively achievable goal with these many. I've already been here, I think, at least 3 times. So if that was your last year's board goal, you would be almost there. And then another one that's been out there, board members will come to each meeting prepared to engage in a collaborative decision-making process that is in adherence to policy with policy practice and procedure. Just some samples to kind of get your juices flowing. And at this point, we generally I move to having a discussion on board goals themselves. If anybody has, and this is meant to be a discussion, not just with me, because it's your district. It's yeah.
I'm just fact checking between the 2 screens.
Yeah.
So far, so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do we want to?
Okay, sure. I would like to start with planning and taking a look, because that was one of the lower areas in our self-evaluation in looking at that. And I'm not sure how to word all this, Patty, but I think it would be beneficial for us to create a mission statement to make sure we have a district mission statement. And I don't know if we have a board mission statement yet, but to take a look at that and to make sure that we have a shared vision among ourselves. And I'd like to also, in our planning, to develop, I've seen in some other districts, a training calendar. And I think you gave us a sample of one of what do you do in January, February, all through the month of the year, so that the public knows and that we know what's coming up and how to do that. So those are 2 things that I'd like to put into a goal. And I'm not sure how the goal should be stated. Yeah.
So, are you
There it is.
Are you suggesting a planning calendar or training calendar if we adopt that as a board goal? in
Yes,
terms
as
of
one of the metrics that
as
were
if
used
we
to
have-
measure, right?
Okay, so if we adopt a goal as making it training as a board as a whole, that's something you'd like to add?
In planning, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and I did give you one.
Yes, I saw
And
that.
a lot of that is based on statute on what needs to be done and when. But certainly a goal could be to adhere to that calendar throughout the year to make sure you could do the CSA evaluation on time
Yes.
and all those different things.
Right, so that's one of the sessions that I attended in the workshop had a really nice, and I think it was the Morris School District. They did a great job of kind of laying out an annual calendar of meetings, particularly around the CSA evaluation. And, so you don't do this last minute. It's not ad hoc where you call a meeting. It was nicely paced in terms of 12 months in a year. They have scheduled board retreats that gives them the opportunity to meet up and actually have the right timing in terms of providing feedback or just having that level of interaction with the CSA to make the evaluation process transparent, to make the evaluation process not rushed, right, as it can be if you don't plan ahead. So I think they did a great job of kind of sharing that. And I think I have some screenshots that I'll circulate. But that would be something, to your point about actually having a calendar, I think would be a great starting point for us to just all agree.
Okay. I also would like to see something done with our committees in terms of our regularly scheduling committees. We have regularly scheduled board meetings, and sometimes it's hard to get everybody together, and we're all volunteers, jobs and everything, families, and to kind of have a tentative of when we should schedule committee meetings, and then also to make clear what the committee is about. What is the purpose of that committee? And to kind of let the public know also, what is this committee about? And even putting together a newsletter and highlighting a committee each month. If we do a newsletter every 2 months, and this month we're going to highlight what the policy committee does, what the curriculum committee does, and making sure that we have that. And then I know in our district, we have the minutes taken by the administration, and they're shared first among the committee members to make sure that they're good before they would go out to the public. And that takes time. And the public sometimes doesn't understand that the minutes have to be looked at first and approved before they go out. And I'm not sure about if we sharing those minutes, because a lot of times there may be something talked about in the committee that needs to be redacted. And I'm not quite sure how to go about that. But I like committee meeting minutes that are helpful to me, that I know what's happening, because I don't go to all the committee meetings.
Right.
Yeah.
And the minutes, you're right. Frequently committees are, there's generally a staff liaison to that committee. And so that staff liaison does write the minutes. It's not uncommon. You do have to be careful, because if you're in some committees, you may be discussing things that are confidential, and they can't go in the minutes out to the general public. But they can go, so you have to be careful not to put that out there, what can't be put out there. But there are boards that they have regularly scheduled committee meetings. So that, and just as an example, that your meetings tonight is Thursday. So maybe one other Thursday a month, all the committees meet, or on 2 different Thursdays. It's certainly easier to plan them ahead of time, and then board members can build it into their calendar. And then if there's no need that month for a committee meeting, it's easy to cancel. But to try and get everybody's schedules together is challenging, because as you say, you all have busy lives, your families, work, whatever. And I know board members tend to be some very active members of your community. So there may be other organizations that you're part of. And so that's a good goal to have, is to have the committees meet regularly, or at least at your reorg, when you set the meeting dates, just set dates for the committees, such as, an easy one is to just pick the night of your board meeting, but not the exact night, not the week before, the week after, or however you, or another night of the week, the first Monday of every month, something like that, something that the board decides, about that, that decides what that schedule would be.
So Patty, I know Gail and I've talked about this before, and we talked about trying to get it up and running, and this is a perfect time to have the discussion, the newsletter, which I think is a great idea. I think that getting out to the community. I just wanted to clarify though, with regards to the committee meeting minutes, is that something we can put on the, or do we have to be a little bit more careful how, putting that on? Does stuff have to be redacted, or how can we sort of get those to the public, without?
Yeah, you post the committee dates, like you post your meeting dates on your website, you post. the
Right, but
committee
with
dates.
regards to the actual minutes, so can we
And,
publish?
and that's a little more challenging. I mean, you could certainly, like you do your other minutes, post them there, but sometimes the committees have discussions of a wealth of topics that may or may not, you're hashing out, right? You're whittling down. And so you have to be a little more, cautious about what you put out there, but there's no reason why at a board meeting that the committee chair could just talk about what happened in their committee that month. Like
Which is what we actually do.
Right.
We have it on our agenda.
Mhm.
The chair of the committees give out a report after they've attended them.
Mhm.
So we do actually do that at the moment. I was just interested to know what the procedure would be.
Did you?
So first of all, I think your point about setting up a calendar, usually in my experience, which the years that is, but in my experience, a lot of times when the board organizes itself in January and they select committee assignments, that in my experience is when boards would say, okay, they would talk to me as the BA, what, Nick, finance and facilities, we're gonna have a meeting every month unless we're not gonna do, and the chair usually would help me as the school business administrator establish that agenda.
Mhm.
And so I guess the point is you can do that with committees. I think the time to do it is when you're reorganizing yourself.
Okay.
Then you make committee assignments and then you say, you put that calendar together and it can go for you as a board all the way through to December. And
Yeah.
I think that's,
Yeah.
As far as the content of the committees, I think, what happens sometimes in committee, I'll just speak from experience, is let's say we're reviewing a specific contract that the board wants to negotiate and we bring it to committee. If we put that in the committee report and put it out publicly, now we're in a sense doing the service to that contractor that we might be talking about,
Right.
and also to the board who hasn't had a chance to review the matter as a board of a whole, because one of the things the public has to understand is committees don't make decisions.
Right.
Only a board sitting as a whole makes a decision. Committees bring forward recommendations, and again, to Madam President's point, a lot of times in my experience, the chairman of the finance committee would report out. He or she would only turn to me to say, Nick, can you clarify that a little bit, what happened? Otherwise, I sat there quietly and they just reported out what we did. So that would be my only issue,
Right.
but, certainly personnel, that's pretty much
Mhm.
usually
Confidential, sure.
But when you're talking like finance and facilities, I think you would just have to be careful if there's something that is not ready for public consumption.
Right.
Because remember, the board hasn't maybe yet reviewed it.
Right.
Full board. That's
I
my-
don't, you mean,
that's my-
and that's a point well taken, that whatever happens in committees, the committee makes a recommendation to the board and the board vote is either yay or nay, based on the committee's recommendation and the research that they've done. But, as far as contract negotiations, it could be in finance and facilities. You could be contracting about a new textbook and curriculum, or looking at those different options. So you do have to be careful in what goes out to the public in your written minutes. They're really primarily so that board members who are not part of that committee get a sense of what was discussed in committee. And then if they should have a question, that board member then can go to the committee chair to ask that specific question. You do have to be careful when you're putting minutes out to the public. But,
Okay.
you know, the suggestion that at your reorg meeting, and you do set the dates for either reorg, or sometimes the president doesn't appoint the chair until maybe the next meeting right after reorg. You know, and that's time to get to set those meeting dates and get them on the calendar for a year so everybody knows when they meet, and then post the dates on your website.
I've always wondered one thing about committees and discussion. That happens in committee. Do we, or does the committee have to wait to officially report into the board and make a recommendation exclusively, or are committee members permitted to mention anything that was discussed with a fellow board member before the board as a whole? Just discussion. I'm not talking about taking action.
Well, I think it would be wise to wait until the minutes became available to the board, and then have that discussion, because you certainly don't want to have a lot of discussions offline where it might appear like you say something and somebody else says something, that you're circumventing the Open Public Meetings Act. That's the biggest concern.
If I can, I think that's a very important point. About this event, because again, only the full Board of Education can take action on any items. So I think this is well taken. You know, board members, you know, so we have a finance and facilities committee. That's my reference mostly. And sometimes somebody might say, well, what happened in the committee meeting? I think the general discussion about the fact that, you know, well, we looked at this, but you'll hear more when we report out. I think in fairness to the committee members too, they may look at the minutes of the committee meeting and say to the DA or who's ever taken those, wait a minute, you know what? That's not right, Nick. We should. So I think the committee should vet it first, and then you report it out. It could all be done from the time the committee meets to the board meeting. I don't think you would wait probably more than a week or so. I mean, depending on when the committees are. And the other point about having committee meetings before the actual board meeting, that's a little tricky because it's people's schedule. So if you're meeting at 7 o'clock, I mean, I've been through this, you know, I've been in districts where they started committee meetings at 5 o'clock, but not everybody based on their work schedule can get there. And so, I hate to say it, I know it's another night out, but it's almost better having a separate night or time whenever for a committee meeting, so that you don't feel rushed up against your meeting at 7 o'clock. That's just my own opinion. You can actually.
No, and that's why I said, like, pick another night in the month. I mean, when we were on Branchburg, we had 2 board meetings a month. And then if you were on 2 committees, that's another 2 nights out. So it was a lot, but, and any way that you can streamline that to make it more, to make it better for your members, it works.
So as a board, with being a board of committees, we do have committees separate from our board meeting. The committees meet, you know, whenever things need to be discussed, and each of the chairs will set those meetings. So we don't actually do them on the same night.
Yeah. It really is whatever works best for your board.
Okay.
And we've had them on Zoom too.
You can.
Yeah.
You can do virtual meetings for sure, if that's easier, if that gets more people of the committee there, if it works better. It really comes down to whatever works best for your board.
So one of the things that I liked, and I know it was brought up, Pam brought it up last year, and I know we talked about it, but we didn't get around to implementing it this year. But one of the things I really liked and was reminded again at the conference was a governance committee. I noticed that a lot of boards who seem to function well have a governance committee. And I know we have a lot of committees as it is right now, but I thought one of the things we could potentially do is maybe combine some of those committees to make them less, and then maybe somehow find a way to add a governance committee. Because I think there's a lot that the committee can do that, you know, works with the board. So that's something I think would be a great addition, you know, to the board.
Yep,
But I mean,
I
I'm just
would
putting
agree.
it
I looked
putting
at
it
your
out
committee
there.
structure and you have a lot of committees.
We do,
And-
we do.
You know, that could be a board goal, is to look at the committee structure. And there is a training program that's all about committees. How to set them up, how to set them up, how to issue a charge to that, all sorts of different things. I saw a hand over here.
Yeah, I was going to say a couple of things. Yes, I think we do have too many committees. The other thing is not very clear to me is how the minutes for the committees actually get approved. Because we're not really voting on anything in committees. They have no authority to approve anything. So how do you approve the minutes? The other thing is I'd like to see the committees not just produce a recommendation, but I'd like to see the supporting documentation or evidence in support of the recommendation. In other words, I don't want to just see, oh, we recommend X without telling me what they looked at, what data they collected, what information they had to arrive at that conclusion. I want a well-supported argument. In fact, I'd almost argue for a position paper on certain issues.
I mean, that is a board, you know, a norm of the board. If you want to include in all the committee minutes for the board members, the supporting documentation, that can certainly be done if that's the will of the board. Part of the purpose of having committees is so that the committee does all that intense work, so that every board member doesn't have to. But if it's something that will make board members feel better able to vote, there's no reason why it can't be done.
Yeah, the idea is, I mean, I don't want the committee making the decision. If you just come to me and say, I recommend X, and you haven't told me how you got to that or what you looked at, then I'm in a position of I don't have the information. I'm supposed to vote on something or I don't know much about it.
Well, certainly the recommendation should include why they're supporting that, why they're making that recommendation or not, whatever that may be. But as I said, it's not illegal for different board members to have the supporting documentation leading to that recommendation of the committee. So that can certainly be done. There's no reason why it can't be done. Yes.
I think I speak loud enough for people to hear me, but I mean, I understand the point you're making, you know. The Board of Education decides that committee system is a way to go. Then I, as a sitting board member, and I was a board member in my hometown for a full term before I decided it was too much. But anyhow, we then put a lot of faith in our committees. But, you know, the committee would report out. It doesn't necessarily mean on the night that the committee reports out that you're taking a vote on that item. So, you know, I guess that's something that would have to be worked out. So the committee does the work. They report out a meeting and the board has some questions, and then by the next board meeting, the committee says, you know, we'd like to put this on the agenda as a recommendation. I think what you're saying is there needs to be more information before the board is asked to act on an item. And I understand, but again, if you as a body believe that your committee should be doing the work, then one of the open-ended questions is, do you trust the committee system enough to take those recommendations? Otherwise, you're doing everything as a body of a whole. I would tell you, you don't want to go there. You don't want it, because the committee system is in place really to really dig down and vet and be able to say to the board, you know what, we worked on some things in committee. We're not bringing them forward. We don't think even at committee level they should come forward. So I think that's the work has to be done and dug down in committee. Now, some people are of different opinion. There's some boards of education in this state that meet as a board of a whole all the time. Well, you're gonna do that, then everything, there's no opportunity to you, especially when it may come to personnel or other matters, you to really vet those in a committee setting. So again, I'm just my point of view, because I'm not gonna be the one, but,
Yeah, no, but,
I appreciate the fact that you want.
Well, and isn't this one of those times, like when we have a committee meeting, and some of our committees, I know we do have a decent amount, but some of them only meet 4 times a year, right? We have a strategic plan. We're not doing a strategic plan for another 3 years, right? We just finished negotiations. That's not going to be used for another 3 years. So, right, sometimes we have these committees, but those committees are not working every month, like the policy committee and the finance committee who do meet regularly. But the minutes always come out before the agenda,
Yep.
right? Before we have like a board meeting. So that's when you have the opportunity to pick up the phone and call the chair or write an email to the chair and say, I need more information on this topic because I'm not sure I'm seeing the same thing, right? Like that's where the respect comes in to say, chairperson, the athletic committee, I heard you talked about this, give me more information, right? And Jordan would be like, yeah, this is what we talked about. This is why we decided this. And then you come to that conclusion and then you show up to the meeting ready to vote, yes or no, right? So
And to Pam's points, so the committee meetings minutes go out to the committee first, then they get shared with the board. And then the agenda gets shared, a draft on the Friday or on the Monday. So board members have a lot of time to pick up the phone, to reach out to the committee chairs, ask questions if they have concerns, or to the administration if there's something they need to.
or to
So
share the.
They are,
supporting
to Pam's
documents.
point, they are sent out quite far in advance for people to have the option to ask questions and get the information if they require it.
So it sounds to me like we need to have some structure within our committees. Yes, as one of our goals, not only structure with a yearly calendar, what happens in the committee, because I'm not on the facilities and finance, but if I want something brought forward, I have to go to that chair ahead of time and say, okay, when you have this, I would like to have you bring up this or understand more about this. And then the same thing after they meet, if I don't understand, I have to go to that chair and I have to say, could you explain why before I get to vote at a board meeting? Make sure I understand that. So I think if we kind of put that in a goal to make sure everybody understands that, it would be more helpful.
I think, Gail, what you're saying is, what is the
Procedure.
job description of the
Yes.
committee
Yes.
is what you're getting at.
Right.
Is what is the goal of a committee? What are the responsibilities? What is, say, a deliverable coming out of a committee,
A timeline. Yes. Yes.
right?
Mhm.
And, just from how can we function better as a board? I think it's important to kind of have that transparency on what each committee, what is their mandate, what are they supposed to do? Not just for us as a board, but I think also as a community for them to see, what is happening or what should be happening within these committees.
I mean, and that's called the committee charge, and every committee should have a charge. But that's the whole structure of the committees, so that everybody understands what the purpose of that committee is and what the guidelines are and what their when they have their meetings and the minutes and that is something that is very helpful to boards. I would suggest though that I think you have like 7 or 9 committees.
We have 9.
That's a lot of committees.
We have 9
I
at the
think,
moment.
Like
But we
the-
could reduce them.
you could
We
make
could lump some stuff
put
together.
negotiations as either an ad hoc for when it's the year you're going to negotiate. So you don't, and maybe appoint somebody, or just put that on off negotiation years into the personnel committee. That is something that you can do. And then as you get into a negotiations year, you might want to have an ad hoc committee. I say put it into personnel because there are things that crop up on off contract years that need to be discussed. So you don't want to not have it. So if you make it part of personnel, things like that can be done.
So while on the topic of committees, one question that I've had as in my first year now is how do you effectively rotate members in different committees so that everybody sort of gets exposure to that area and, just in terms of their own growth and just on the job training kind of a thing to understand, the policy committee versus the curriculum committee versus the finance committee. So in the workshop, I think, I can't remember the name of the district, but the president of that board shared an interesting idea where they effectively rotate the members every year on these committees so that it's not the same person that's on the committee for like 2 years or, 3 years, but it's rotated enough so that different people get their experience in all of those areas. So do you have any thoughts, recommendations on that?
I didn't look at your bylaws, but in many
Okay.
in many boards, the president makes the appointment onto committees. And sometimes it's done by asking people, board members, what their interests are, or what their expertise is. And there's no reason why, there's certainly something to be said to have some consistency from year to year, but there's no reason why maybe with the chair, but then others just rotate around from year to year to get. I mean, that's how I got on my negotiations team the first time out, just as the newbie to learn the process.
So one point, I've been in districts where sometimes they'll name an alternate for the committee.
We have that.
So, the president is on, it's in, but sometimes, especially if some committee members, again, my experience is always in finance and facilities, could say that somebody has a tough work schedule. So sometimes you would say, well, if so-and-so can't make it, the first alternate to that meeting is so-and-so. So you may think about doing that to kind of, to your point, that helps someone else get exposure. That alternate, somebody says, this, I can't make the meeting. Oh, the alternate is available, let them go. That could be an option.
So the way we actually did it, or have done it, is that we reach out to all the committee members and to ask them what their preferences are, and also try and align with their interests or their, if they are, have a tech background, that's obviously something that you might want them to be part of. So, but we reach out to them before all the committees, and we ask for them to put in 3 or 4 of their preferences, and based on everybody's preferences, we do the best we can to, give everybody, what we can give them as much as possible. The other thing we like to try, we have done is at least 2 years to give the person on the board who might be there for 1 year the option of at least having a second year to be on that committee. So that's how we've done it.
I mean, the biggest thing you have to be concerned about is you can't have a majority at any committee meeting, because then that needs to be noticed as an open public meeting.
Correct.
So, and the idea that Nick talked about, having the alternate, so that if somebody if one of the committee members is unable to attend a meeting, that you can then, the alternate can go, and at least for that committee meeting. So there's lots of different options that can be done.
Just to triple clarify though, sorry, it's me. It sounds like you're advocating, Patty, that we would establish the committees at reorg, and that they would, outside of the alternate concept, would remain intact for the year or perhaps, 1 or 2 years, but not necessarily a rotation during the year. I just wasn't sure about that, to clarify, because I know that's been asked before about, should we be outside of a chair rotating? I haven't seen that personally, and my own personal take on it is I think that's going in the opposite direction of the efficiency that we might be moving toward here with what we're talking about with committees, but just want to make sure that I'm understanding what you're saying correctly.
No, you're correct in
Okay.
that, just for the efficiency of the committee, it's better to have the same committee members. But if you have the alternate, then if somebody's going to miss a meeting, you can drop into that one meeting. But generally, they're done on a yearly basis for that reason, so that there is consistency, so that there are board members, committee members that are part of the discussion.
Do you have any information on if you're going to be rotating members, how long a member should be on a committee before they rotate to something else?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Do you have any information on how long, if you're going to rotate, and how long you should stay on a committee? Should it be a 1 year, 2 years, and then try something else, or what?
I think that's comes down to a decision, a consensus of the board and of the board member, because a board member may have no interest in being on finance ever, because that's just not their bailiwick. That's not it. They prefer other members who are familiar and have an interest in going on that. So it really does come down to the interests of the board and how the board decides to go. If the board consensus is to move forward where every year, every committee's different, I venture to say that would be like starting over brand new every year, and that would affect some of the efficiency of the committee. That there should be maybe the chair or the chair moves to a non-chair position on there and somebody else moves in. There's all sorts of options, and it really is up to the board to come up with the one that they think will work best for them.
Patty, can you just clarify, did you say that every committee should have an alternative?
I'm sorry.
Did you say every committee should have an alternative? Is that what you said?
Should rotate?
Alternative.
No,
Alternate.
that's a decision of the board. That,
'Cause
I think-
we do have it for finance, but we don't have it for all the other committees. I'm wondering, were you requesting that that's something we should consider?
it is something you could consider to just have an alternate for each committee.
Okay, okay. All right.
That's really, again, these are options. It's like not my final decision. It really
sure.
is what you would like to do. So I am hearing that there's definitely a goal about committees. And I'm looking to see, I have some standard ones. Let me get back. You see one for committee? No, yes,
So our first goal could be board planning and committee, because I like what Dipti had here, improve board planning and committee meeting practices. That could be one goal.
Right.
And then everything we've kind of discussed could go underneath that as part of our metrics and our objectives.
And how we would measure it, right? Is
Yeah, our
you have-
objectives.
You have a calendar for like.
Exactly,
Committees
right.
published and, do you have examples of sort of how does a board measure the success, like they have met the goal or they have made significant progress? Like, do you have anything?
Where that comes out, where you measure the progress is how the board members feel the committee is working or that structure is working. And then it comes out in your board self-evaluation. Right? When you're evaluating the board on a yearly basis and the operations of the board, and then as the board as a whole, and then you as a board member, those issues, and because it's done anonymously, those issues tend to crop up, and then you see, okay, well, a lot of board members, there's a lot of comments that they weren't happy with this past year, so we need to look at that and revise it or change it.
And just one quick question. We didn't talk about this in the beginning, but typically we have the district goals run from July through June, kind of the school year. But the way the board really functions, or, people get on the board in January and it sort of runs calendar year. So would it make sense for us to essentially use a calendar year to say, this is the timeline for which we will set a certain goal and then measure it at the end of the year, middle of the year, whatever is the right thing to do?
I mean, generally, the board self-evaluation is done over the summer, primarily because it's a slower time for districts and for board members, and that then the board goals generally follow the school calendar. But there's just it's a best practice, so it's not set in stone what you follow. The other part of that best practice is to periodically report out quarterly on progress towards those goals. I mean, generally, the board goals are not as specific as the district goals. It's just really on how, again, how you as a board operate and how you can be more efficient and in your operations.
So the district goals are usually established by July 1st, right? So that's,
Well, they're set by the district
Right.
goals by the administration, but they're approved by the board. And the administration
Right.
should also be reporting out. We recommend quarterly, but whatever, some do it monthly, some, whatever works best for you guys.
so would the suggestion be once the district goals have been established, then the board will obviously over the summer do a self-evaluation and then look to align their board goals with the district goals, right? And that's the intention, right?
Well, align as much as possible.
Well, of
Like,
course.
frequently a district goal, I'm sorry, a board goal is to provide the support and resources necessary to achieve either the district goals or specific district goals that may have, because that is, if you're the threat assessment teams, right? There's training involved in that. There's finances, there's things that have to get done. So in saying we'll support that district goal by providing support and resources means you're going to have that discussion at budget time. And when the administration comes, you say, well, we need this training to get this certification and it costs this much. That's a discussion, a board discussion, but by supporting that, you're being open to that discussion from the administration. And that's just an example. You have communications in other district goals that you have.
I just wanted to piggyback also on something. So we talked about descriptions. We, as a board, do have descriptions for our committees, and I know we sent it out to all the committee members before the committees were chosen. Would you suggest that we put those descriptions on the agendas of each of those committees? Is that something you think, would be? For rather the minutes?
I mean, certainly you could do either or both. You could put because if you put it on the public agenda, then that's allows the public.
No,
to
I'm talking
say-
about the agenda for the committees.
Oh, the agenda, the charge on the agenda for the committee.
I mean, it will be on the website obviously as well, but I'm talking about maybe putting it, because you were talking about, looking at the purpose of the committee, and would it be advisable to put something like that on the agenda, or to Robert's point, maybe the minutes?
I mean, certainly wouldn't hurt to put it on the agenda, but I mean, if you're putting it on the committee agenda.
I'm
I
talking about
thought you meant
committees.
the
No, I'm talking
main
about
board
committees.
Agenda. I mean, hopefully the board members who are on that committee know what the charge is, or the description. The charge or description is very similar.
And
It
Angela,
wouldn't
just to
hurt.
clarify, when you say you putting it on the agenda for like one time, yes, everybody's aligned that this is what the committee is supposed to do, not like on an ongoing basis, right? You meant like get everybody to stack hands and say, this is what the mission of this committee is. We all agree, and
So kind of fall under the discussion about having a mission. So I was
Okay.
thinking putting it on, I mean, I'm thinking out
and I
loud,
think-
really.
I mean, I think, so given that we will have 2 new board members start in January, I think it makes perfect sense to me that, once we go through the reorg, once we have the committee structure set up, I think it makes sense to, disperse that in the committee, make sure that everybody is in alignment, and then, publish it out on the website. I think that's a great idea.
Angela? Yeah, we actually have a policy on board committees, and I think but right now, all it does is list the committees, and I think the proper thing would be to actually, within the policy, specify what is the charge of the committee.
Yeah.
So it's really just a question of what do you want to say about each committee and put that in the policy.
Is that in our bylaws though?
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
it's,
so we're
something
not a
about-
policy. It's in the bylaws,
it's
the
in
mission of the committee.
It's in the 100 series. I
Yeah,
just
okay,
don't
you meant
remember the
bylaws.
exact number right
Right.
now.
Okay.
But
Okay.
we do have we should have a policy on standing committees. And it should mention ad hoc committees too. We do have something already on this. We just have never.
And we
written
do
down
send it,
What each.
when everybody gets the
Yeah,
option to look at committees, we
Yeah.
do send out the descriptions so that the members know,
right.
to see what they might be interested in. They want to look at what the committee is about to help them decide what they might be interested in.
And that kind of definition, right, you have the goal, that would be, part of the action plan. So part of if you have a goal about the committee structure, one of the steps in the action plan is to define each committee or put the charge for each committee. So that's like the next step.
Can I come back to communications for a second? Which Dipti raised and it's alluded to in here a little bit, Patty, some of the bullets, but I'm on this board a couple of years and it's been suggested over time, not to press this hot button, but we might as well, that we do more maybe public listening sessions or public sessions around certain moments, budget related, et cetera. Is that enough to form a goal? Should that roll into a goal? I think it's worth us discussing because it's come up a lot. I feel like it's maybe something that, again, I'm not on a lot of committees because I'm mountainside, but so I don't know maybe sometimes what I might miss along the way, but is that something worth us discussing? Do we want to establish that or is it, how do we want to handle that as a board discussion?
I think that should be a separate goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do
And
I have a mountainside goal?
Does Mountainside have a goal to that effect?
Around a public, we don't, but also we don't get the turnout. So there isn't a demand necessarily for it at this point. So it's,
And
yeah.
Jordan, also, it's on the district. I think it's a good idea because Melissa's got it on, Dr. Varley's got it on her district goals.
That's right.
So I think to try and align with the district goals as well, I think it's a great idea. I think something we really should consider, trying to do more of.
To have the more listening sessions, just, yeah.
I was gonna say, shouldn't that perhaps be a benchmark under a goal about improving communication? So rather than a separate goal, I thought you had said a separate goal. I would probably make that a benchmark for measurement of improving communication as the goal.
And yes, that could be part of it. And what I neglected to say is generally boards have no less than 3 and no more than 5 board goals. So you don't want to get too onerous set or too many goals and too specific into the action plan that it impedes you doing the work that you need to do by law.
I think we're going to find it hard to find 3 goals.
Oh, I don't think we're going to find 3 goals. I think
What I mean is I think we can try to whittle them down to 3.
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
we've got
right,
way
yeah,
more
yeah.
that we're
So,
talking about.
Do
It's
we
gonna be
have
hard to
enough
do
to
3.
make our first goal about planning? I think our discussion, do you have some wording for us, Patty, that we could?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
I will look up some wording on planning. I thought I took all that stuff and I do not, but I might, I think there's some wording in.
Yeah.
We have
Mr.
words.
Flo,
Yeah.
You
Mr.
have it and I handed out all the packets. I didn't keep one for myself.
One thing I would add, and
Yes.
shouldn't be doing with this. As a long-time sitting business administrator, I think one of the things that I always try to do more for the board is say, when you're setting goals, remember, you're a governing body, not a managing body, you're a governing body. So governance should be what you're thinking that goal, because as you set that governance goal, then and let's take finance and facilities for example. As you set a governance goal to, be thorough and efficient, whatever, financial, but underneath that could be things about budget. You can then get pretty specific in that committee. But the one thing that I would just offer is just that as you develop the goal, remember you're a governing body. You don't manage a school district. I know it's easy because we all manage our life every day. So I would just, mention that, but it sounds like you're in the right direction, planning and so forth. Makes sense. But again, just my comment. You don't have to Anything I say.
Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate your input.
Well, I mean, hey, some examples on other, like, of what are, I did a sampling of different boards' goals, recent board goals from different districts. Continue to improve communications both within the board and externally, or to continue to improve community engagement, to strengthen communication with families and community members. That's kind of the broad kind of statement that you're looking for in your goals. Just as you're going forward, I'm reading through here.
It's interesting, Patty, because I don't want to use the word vague, but they move to the opposite of the specificity that I think we sometimes ask for from Dr. Varley, let's say, in goals. So I'm not criticizing it. It sounds like that's the way to go to keep it open-ended, but a little bit makes me a little itchy because it's just, we're just going to do better.
Well, I mean, that's the goal statement.
Yes, and then we can be specific beneath. Okay, okay.
The specificity
Okay.
comes in the action plan.
Okay, so we can bullet it out and these can be
And
bullet,
I
bullet,
think
bullet.
I gave you a sample of
Yeah.
what an action plan looks like, and then a blank action plan. So if you
Okay.
look at if you look at that first one.
So
No.
this would
That's
be
the
sort of
goal.
the high level, but
And
then
then bullet, bullet,
what,
bullet.
yeah.
Okay.
So the one example, the board goal is to evaluate the CSA in a timely manner. Now, you've done that, and you do that routinely. Not
Yes.
every board does that. I mean, and that has a statutory deadline,
Yeah.
but then what is that? The major activities under that broad goal is the board sets annual goals, is one. The board annually evaluates the CSA based on progress towards the district goals and evaluation of their leadership. And then the board submits written performance written performance report to the CSA. So the specificity comes in the activities and how to achieve that. The goal statement, as you see that one, that's pretty broad to
Yes.
evaluate the CSA in a timely
Sure.
manner. Then it's just when you get to the action plan, on how you do that. And then, the action plan below, just for the members of the public, further delineates who the board if it's the board or staff that's gonna do that specific activity, the time, the resources needed, the timeline to get it done, and the indicators of success. So that, even on your board goals, what it will take to be successful in that. And quite honestly, some board goals, I was in a district where we're doing board goals, and they feel like this one goal from 22-23, they made progress toward, but they haven't achieved. So they're continued that into the next year, which means that then the activities change somewhat.
So our goal could be to improve Board of Ed planning and committee structure. Just as simple as that.
Yeah, it could be. And I think the point about sort of outward communication to the community, I would keep that sort of as another separate action plan, or, call it whatever, just because what we will need to do to achieve that versus the committees is just different
Is different.
activities. So to me, it sounds like
Two separate
two
goals.
separate things.
I agree.
Communications and planning and committee. So I would agree with you. Communications can be its own separate board goal.
So when we're developing these or doing the action plan, we would write communications and then a whole list of things that we feel we need to do to improve communications. Is that how you're suggesting we do this? So we've had a lot of discussion tonight about different ideas about calendar and more public discussion. So would you say we put communications and then we write underneath it some of the things that we plan to do to achieve that goal? Is that how you're suggesting we do this? And it was, okay.
Do we, and logistically, how does that work? So are we, when we walk away tonight?
Yeah.
Do we endeavor as a board to have an open Google Doc where we're filling this in as a group virtually, or are we meant to
come back
Yeah.
here to determine that? How does that work?
A lot of times it's bounced into the different committees to hash out but part of your role is to relook at all the committees that you have. It doesn't necessarily have to be an advertised board meeting as long as you're not taking action. But if a bunch, I hesitate on I look to Nick for this on the Google Doc that all the board members have access to
'Cause that's,
and can contribute to how that falls into, if that falls
could
into
that be
a proposed
considered
meeting.
as board discussion?
Yeah, I mean, the law is clear about the board can take action through, documents, or they can only take action when they sit as a board in the sunshine. But sharing the information, so let's say a committee decides that this is a goal with the action, and they want to share that with everybody else to see, is everybody okay with that goal and the action? I think that's fine. I mean,
And
they're
a Google
trying to
Docs.
avoid the thing that the law cautions a board about is that you can't somehow through email or whatever be making decisions. You can only make those decisions when you sit here as a board, because when you're not sitting here, you have no authority, quite frankly. I mean, that's the law. But I think sharing the information, that's how you're gonna get to it. I mean, you have to, you're gonna go back and forth. So I think that would be fine. I mean, in this day and age of technology, I think you can do that. And maybe it comes through committee a little bit, but yeah, I think you're okay. Again, as long as you're not trying to get any consensus via email, you can't do that.
This sounds suspiciously like a sequential meeting. Though, I mean, it really does sound like an end run around the Open Public Meetings Act.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing. I don't recommend that because I think you could fall into the area in a reply to all email where it would be considered a discussion,
Yeah.
notwithstanding the fact a decision would not be made.
Yeah, I agree. You never reply all, never. You're not supposed to do that. But what I'm just trying to see is how do you get to the point where you share, say a goal, let's say a goal was created out of the finance and facilities committee, and you just want to share that to see if that general goal is okay. I mean, the other way to do that would be to have a workshop session in the public and have that open discussion. Then you're completely covered, and that's probably the safest way.
Well, and that was my concern with a Google Doc, because everybody has access to that and you're putting things in and in real time, other people can. So does that then become the discussion? That is a concern.
So just to clarify, are you suggesting that like, for example, communications, we know as a board, we want communications. Are you suggesting that the committee goes back, comes up with some ideas, and then we come back and have a public session and discuss the ideas that we've come up with? I'm just trying to understand, sorry, what your suggestion is.
For the action plans, and that is one way to do it. It's a challenging way because you have a lot of committees, so it'll be might not be so obvious which committee gets into what. The other option is to come back at a work session. And, if we decide, if we can agree on the concepts of the board goals tonight, what it takes to achieve that, I can certainly provide some examples.
Do you have any more besides evaluate the CSA in a timely manner? Any more action plans? This is a nice one. So that gets us 1 out of 3 or 5. I don't know if we're doing 3 or 5, but it gives us 1. So now I need 2 or 4 more.
We're doing
Do you
3,
have
right? Your suggestion was.
Well, I don't know. If we're
I
doing
think-
5 goals, then I need 4 more.
No, the suggestion was 3, I believe,
No
right?
less.
But
3.
he said,
less
she gave a
than 3,
range,
no
3
more
to
than
5.
5.
So if we're doing 3, I need 2 more. If we're doing 5, I need 4 more. The question is, how many do you have that we could use?
So one of them was, I thought the communication was one of the goals. Tom?
Communication. So
I
do you
thought
have an
communication
example
was
of an action
something that
plan
we all
for
seem to agree on.
communication?
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Right.
have the board will
Yeah,
approve
I think we
planning
have
and committee.
one planning, one
And one
goal on planning,
planning,
which
one-
would be something to improve Board of Ed planning and committee structure.
Or
Then a
calendar,
second
calendar.
goal would be to improve communications
Communications
internally and
and
externally.
externally.
Right.
Yes,
So that's
Yeah,
two,
that's two.
That's two.
two, so we need a third.
Well, we have CSA evaluation.
The third one, Tom's recommending we
What?
take
Yeah, yeah.
inspiration from the action plan that you have.
What?
And
Yeah.
it's not a bad thing. I mean, all jokes aside, I think it's good because it lays down very specific
Right.
actions that have to be taken
Right.
as a part of the evaluation. And
So as Steve Jobs said, the best ideas are stolen. So I'm looking, I'm looking to steal an action plan.
I'm all about not reinventing the wheel, so.
That's
as
another
I-
way.
as I was reading some of
Yeah.
the board goals that I took from other districts, just
Right.
because
It
you
could be
know, it
action.
helps to think these, to get your juices
So-
flowing on that. So, if you don't want more than five, you don't want less than three, but you certainly don't want more than five. You want it to be achievable. You, especially your first year out, you want it to be not so easy that but you want it to be achievable. And, you know, another one could be just to provide the support and resources necessary toward the achievement of the district goals.
I was going to ask about that because when you put the district goals up before, there are things like green team. There are things like DEI, student achievement, which are all of which are important. And so it'd be nice to somehow make sure that they show up, whether it's in what you just said as a separate goal to support district goals, and or to also show up underneath things like communication, because those are
Mhm.
opportunities, for example, to open up to public feedback if we were talking green team ideas, et cetera. So those are really important, and I think we should try to keep the lines close between those as often as possible, so we don't lose sight of them as well, and that they're part of what we do,
I agree.
not just what the district does.
I agree. I think we need
that's
to.
I think that's a good third
Yes,
goal too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think keeping the district goals aligned to some degree, as you
So,
mentioned,
so that would
is
be
definitely something
four.
we want to.
That would actually be
Yeah.
four. And
You
if
know?
you want to, now if you want to get to five, and because you had talked to, Angela had talked about, professional development, just, even if you're committing to four from now through next year, that is something as well. And that gets you to five, I think, achievable.
At five, I thought it was
Four.
four,
Well,
yes.
Well,
I thought that was
the
four.
board will- I have the board
we-
will improve the planning, will
Planning?
improve planning committee structure.
Right.
Improve communications
communications.
internally and externally. I heard something about the CSA.
CSA
eval,
evaluation
support the district
and
goals.
support the.
And then if you want professional development, that would be five. You don't need to do that. You can still commit to doing professional development without it being a board goal.
I liked what you said, Patty, at the beginning, talking about the board academy and about professional development,
Mhm.
because I learned so much
Mhm.
at the governance, and I'm only did governance one, and then the workshop. I mean, it was so helpful. And
Mhm.
like you said, you've already been here 3 times, so we could have that. If that was our board goal of 4, then we're already down 3. We need just one more. So I think that professional development for board members and the responsibility of a board member and the I don't know, there was something about preparedness of a board member is
Mhm.
all part of professional development, which I think would be a very valuable goal for our board.
Mhm.
I agree. So do you think, so that, I think that's 5, right? So do you
Yes.
think that, we're, as a new board, do you think that's doable? Do you think what we've suggested there is something that we could do? Well, we don't want to set ourselves up for
Well,
failure.
and let's look at it this way. I mean, the CSA evaluation, right? You
We-
do that
We
every
do
year.
that. We
Um,
do.
But if you look in the one calendar I gave you, there are things that can happen throughout the year to help you toward that.
Sure.
That's the
Sure.
evaluation. I
Sure.
think the one that's going to have the most discussion and the most work involved is the first one to, the board will improve planning
Planning.
and the committee structure
Mhm.
to come up with the action plan items as to how you think that you can accomplish that. Supporting the district goals, I mean, you have to do that anyway, but it's a message to the board and the community that, and I'm sorry, I keep looking this way and I'm not looking that way. That those district goals are important and you will do what you need, what's necessary to support them. That doesn't mean you're rubber stamping every vote, but you're having a discussion and you're looking at taking everything seriously. So that is a nice message to not only the board, your fellow board members, your staff and your community, that those district goals are important.
Well, and to remind us as a board, right? Like that is our objective, right? Sometimes you get busy with the finance and, right, and the budget and whatever, but the goal is to support the district goals this year, right? And get those things done because those are priority of interest and to remind us as board members. I don't know if we need the CSA one because we do already do that. I think it will be improved by making a calendar under planning and that way everybody knows what comes at what time. And that will help. But I'm not sure if we need it as a goal. I mean, it will be an achievable goal for us. So yay, one for us, but I'm not sure.
It's a
I'd
good
rather-
sample.
And I'd rather see us work on stuff that we do need to work on. There is plenty. I know one of the other ones that we did not do well was on board operation and board performance. Is there anything you can fall under that?
You can kind of roll that into, I think, the planning and committee structure. I think operations, the committee structure is a big part of the operations of the board.
Under there also, under the board planning, could we put part of our action plan, the Board of Ed, like chain of command? Like if I have a question about a committee that I'm not on, I need to go to the chair of that committee for that. And then afterwards, how does it all structure? I think being clear onto how we establish our board committees and, being respectful and, knowledgeable when we come to the meetings is important to have, but that could be an action point under the planning. Okay.
So can you just clarify some of that? I mean, Gail made a good point there. Can you clarify what the process for the board is in terms of chain of command?
Well, in terms of chain of command, well, chain of command in regard to committees.
I think what Gail is saying in general, in terms of if a board member has questions or concerns, who do they go to? Or if a member of the public comes to a board member and has concerns or questions, I think it's important that the board members understand, what their chain of command is as well.
I think if you have a question about the board agenda, an item on the board agenda, that you need to relay that as that question to the board. If it's before the board meeting, to the board president, they're really on that chain of command. If you have a question about a committee in the minutes and anything that happened in the committee, then you will go to the committee chair. Is that the kind of information the board president is really the primary person that you should go to. But again, for your committee structure, if you have a specific question, because they're not in each committee, you can go to the committee chair.
So as a board member, I'm not reaching out to everybody individually. I go through the board president for my questions. And then I'm on the athletic committee and Jordan chairs that. So we were talking about monies and things and places that I was not familiar with. So I said, I would like to look at these. So I asked Jordan, could we set up a tour? Then Jordan took it from there as the chair to the athletic director. And I don't know where else you went, Jordan, but he arranged it. So now so now we
But
get a tour. So
if
I have a
you're-
better understanding as a board member and a committee member of what I might be voting on.
And when you're now involving staff members, that committee chair should be also keeping the board president informed.
Mhm.
So that you don't want every different committee taking tours of the facilities either. You want that to be a coordinated effort. And if it's done, and we used to do it once a year, it's in just before school opened, the full board, if they wanted to, would take tours of the facilities. But when you're involving staff members, that's when you need to go through the board president, primarily because if say you have 7 committees, so if 7 committee chair are going to the board, to a staff member directly, it puts them in an awkward situation because they're not quite sure what they should do, if they should allow that, and it's just better to have one person. And then if 7 different people are reaching out to staff members, is that impeding their ability to do their daily job? So you want that to be a coordinated effort to go through the board president.
And that's what Jordan did. And as a reminder, we have a tour of the school coming up right
Yeah.
before our next board meeting.
Right. Board members can also go directly to the superintendent, correct? Is that if they have questions or concerns?
I'm sorry, say again?
If they have questions or concerns or anything, board members can go directly to the superintendent, right? No?
That comes under board norms. If that's been your practice in the past, you certainly don't want to have so many people contacting the superintendent
Okay.
so that that superintendent is not able to do their daily functioning, their daily
Okay.
jobs, which is what you've hired that person to do. So that's like, yes, if you have a question, you can go to the superintendent, but it would be wise to keep the board president in the loop of that.
Okay.
am I
So,
leaving it to
so
say
Gail
just-
actually does a very good job at that. Whenever she has questions or concerns, she always reaches out to me and, asks questions and stuff. So she's doing a very good job as
I'm
a new board
learning.
member with the chain of
I'm
command.
learning. I ask a lot of questions.
You do, and that's great.
There's nothing wrong with
That's
questions,
great.
asking questions.
Right.
But she does. She already does that. Yeah, it's fun.
I wanted to follow up on something. The presentation that you did, and you did a great job
Thank
down in Atlantic City. Thank you. It was very useful. It's very lively. Insightful in terms of the group we had. It's always interesting to actually see board members and hear them talk about their districts from across the state. I think too often we compare ourselves locally with what some of us call benchmark districts. So that was very helpful. But I believe you spoke a lot about norms, and I had never heard of norms, and I know you didn't get that much into detail. It was mostly about bylaws, the presentation that is.
Right.
Could you talk a bit about what norms are?
Norms are practices that your board does. And there are either what they currently do or what you'd like them to do. And so you formalize the norms. So the norm is everything goes, some boards, everything goes through the committee chair, but everything goes through the president because they're the spokesperson. They're the main, spokesperson for the board. A norm, I'm trying to think of what other norms there would be. Some norms are just making sure you, no matter how heated the discussion becomes, you always remain respectful and professional. So that and you can imagine in some boards that you're not demeaning your fellow board members in public or in private or offline, that you always remain professional and respectful. That's a norm that you've set for your board. I'm sorry. The boards that do codify that, they have it written out, and they all have a copy of it, and it's I don't know if it's in the bylaws of your your bylaws in your policy manual, but I've seen them written separately and handed out to each board member. Maybe if you have an orientation room, for your new board members, so that they understand, how to comport themselves.
Patty, I saw at the workshop, there was occasionally in the hallway, these poster
Yes.
boards. Were those the norms, talking about being respectful and, okay. I wanted to take a picture of that and I did get a picture of that. So,
Or
It-
I'll ask if that, I'm sure they still have them
yeah.
in Trenton. I was just in Trenton today. But those are norms. So the
Mhm.
expectations of the behaviors you want of your fellow board members. You can also have norms for your committee, like that was an excellent example, Gail. Like it said, it just talked about what you expect people, how you expect them to behave and be.
This sounds an awful lot like a document that I got when I started as a teaching assistant in my doctorate program, graduate school. It sounds like we need a kind of a getting started as a board member in Berkeley Heights. Tips and techniques. What should you do? I mean, really, if somebody would volunteer to write it, that would be a great thing to have, I think.
I think that's
you-
a great idea
Do
too,
you-
Tom.
I mean,
Because I had a little bit of a stumble
it-
there at the beginning.
well,
Like,
there's really,
nobody
there's
told
really
me.
a lot to learn and I'm
There is
still
a lot.
learning. And I mean, it might just start out with no surprises, right?
Mhm.
That's one thing we learned,
Mhm.
but
You know-
just getting started as a board member.
A lot of
Uh,
companies call that onboarding.
Yes,
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 onboarding.
something like
They
that.
call it
Yeah.
onboarding.
Do you have any and where I'm great for plagiarism here, do you have any examples of other boards that have written something like that?
There are examples out there of other boards, and there are that have norms. There are boards that have an onboarding process, and
Right.
so there are copies of that. But I think back in the day when I was first on my board before the November elections, there were only the April elections.
Mhm.
You were elected the second or third Tuesday in April. It was always near my son's birthday. The election, and then the reorg was less than a month later. So now you at least have from November to the
January.
early part of January to get to familiarize yourself. Back in the day, you had 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you're like, whoa, there's that reorg meeting, and you're just like a deer in headlights.
Yeah. So you just run over this. Maybe everybody else follows this, but we have district goals, we have board goals coming along. I need to understand, it seems like the board goals should come first within this short period that we have. And then are the district goals sort of more detailed and derived from the board goals?
The other way around, right?
No,
The
they're
other way
not.
around.
I mean, the board goals should align with the district goals. The district goals are the primary goals of the district. You're
Right.
here to
Hmm.
for the advancement of student achievement. So those district goals are geared towards that. The board goals are geared towards how to help the board function better and govern themselves better, but they should align to the district goals. And then from the district goals, all the way down to the professional development plans for your teachers. They should all align.
Okay, so, all right, so that's interesting because it reverses what I thought it was going to be. So we're going to start with district goals and they come out kind of in July.
Yes.
Right?
They have to be.
And
here by
then
July.
sometime maybe in the fall, we're going to come out with board goals.
Summer.
Or in the summer, board goals and aligned with the pre-existing district goals. Okay.
I mean, moving forward, we'll look at doing it in the summer.
Okay.
This year, it was a little different because it was our first time
Yes.
and we were trying to figure out the process. And we had a couple of meetings with you while we were trying to establish and get to this point.
Right.
But moving forward, there should be
Okay.
put together in the summer, right? So if we do these now, are you saying that come August, we should be doing them again.
To revisiting them, yes. If you want to get onto that track where you do the board stuff, you do the CSA evaluation, but by July 1, that's by law. Then after that, in the summer, you do your board self-evaluation, and then move toward board goals from there, if that's the cycle you want to be on.
I think we want to try and get to that cycle, right?
That was my initial
Yeah.
question, is how do we want to start and measure ourselves? Do we want to do it calendar year? Do we want to align to the district school year, and what makes sense?
Well, the board evaluation is in the summer, right?
Yes.
So we should.
And we should
that
continue
should
with
be
that.
Our
Yes,
metric there that we would
absolutely.
review, see where we made progress, where we didn't, what we want to continue after
Okay.
that. That would,
So maybe use the summer as like a checkpoint.
Right, which is what I think Patty said.
That you do this now,
Mhm.
from now until say June.
June.
right.
And then we
and then we
reevaluate.
Evaluate, see if we are, check, done.
Well, one of them will be checked. The CS valuation should hopefully be checked.
Right.
Right.
Timeline is gonna be, we're gonna get that time.
So we'll get that
We
one
will get
done.
the
We're gonna
timeline.
get that time.
Let's
We'll get that
go.
one done. So,
So it probably makes sense.
Yeah.
yeah,
The overarching goal should be largely intact. Probably room to amend.
Right.
Okay.
Right, you would review them and see if you've achieved what you wanted to achieve, or if you need to move it forward and
Okay.
add different action plan items to it. I mean, there's no reason why you can't move the goal forward if you haven't.
and based on some of the things we may have underneath, some of them we may have accomplished and some of them we may still need to accomplish. So it's a good idea to reevaluate it
And
and
to-
do the self-evaluation again. I think
Right.
that's a good
And
checkpoint.
to periodically report out at a board meeting, progress towards those board goals.
Okay,
And that keeps everybody, the board informed, it keeps the community informed of what you're doing.
Back to the logistics of how this works.
yes.
I mean, so taking my corporate brain off where this would be much easier in a Google Doc, but I get it. So is it easiest if, say, the board president in the best possible, not to put the work on you, but just summarizes the 5 at a high level and then and says, no replying all, but each of you send me what you'd like included under the bullets underneath each of,
I
yes.
think we need to establish the bullets. Obviously, I think we have already.
Yeah, I just
Just
suspect we'll each,
clarify.
Action plan.
everyone's
Yeah.
going to have different contributions that
agree.
we've thought of or others that we'll think of as we reflect a bit.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
wonder if then that gets aggregated, maybe the way that we have done, CSA
Okay.
reviews. And then it comes back for us to look at it in totality, because I just wonder, just to keep this moving, I feel like if it goes to committee, it takes.
No,
forever.
I agree with you there. So if we establish the 5 goals, and then like Jordan said, obviously there were different things that each board member will want to contribute towards that. So maybe if everybody sends that, and then we put something together and then come back as a board
Mhm.
and say, okay, the communications, these were the things that came,
Right.
and these were all the discussions that want to be added,
Mhm.
and then maybe finalize it
Yeah.
that way.
And what's going to happen from my end is I will take this information, I will compile the board goals, I will compile it in memo form to send to Angela, and she can certainly send it to everybody else. To
Okay.
talk, just a recap of what was discussed tonight, and then those 5 goals. Again, I'll send that to you. And I mean, it's already Thursday and it's probably hopefully sometime midweek next week, because election day is Tuesday. Blah, blah.
Okay.
And
Right.
then you can certainly send that out to everybody.
Sure.
And then solicit, I think that's not a bad idea to solicit what they think too.
So do you think we would we would obviously then need an additional special meeting to finalize this? Is that what you're
I
suggesting?
mean, that's up to you. At that point, you might be able to do it, just put it on your agenda at another meeting, at a regular meeting.
Oh, you mean, okay, some potentially added to an
Yeah.
existing meeting.
If you can get the action plan items and everything in place.
We have a
certainly
meeting
by
coming up
the
on the
end of
16th,
Mhm.
So we could target the 16th.
16th,
to
yeah.
Sort of
Have it on the agenda.
have it on the agenda.
agenda.
Let's get everybody's inputs
Yep.
in the meanwhile.
Yeah.
and then see if we are
I
ready.
think
for
that
the
would be better than
16th.
trying to add an additional meeting. We've got so much,
Yeah.
got so
Yeah.
much coming up over the next couple of
Yeah.
months.
Well, I mean,
Um,
and you're coming up to the winter holidays,
Right.
so.
So I'm just thinking, trying to get another meeting
that's-
might be
Gets
difficult.
challenging. It's like herding cats because everybody's lives are so busy.
So I like that idea of trying to have it on the November 16th. Once everybody gives their input and get it put on the agenda for the 16th.
Yeah, and
What
this
am-
way, if it's, oh, go
What
ahead,
am I
Tom.
supposed to do? I'm supposed to send you my ideas for board goals?
So,
Oh, actions.
actions. So
And
we've determined, and I don't know if you want to clarify, just so everybody is aware, we've clarified the 5 goals, and then everybody's gonna obviously have their ideas of what they think should be underneath as an action plan of those specific goals. So if you can send those, like communication, what your thoughts are, and then I
but
can compile
I
it.
had some more board goals that we never got to.
Oh, we've got 5.
What?
We've got 5.
Well, is
think we're
CSA
done.
evaluation one of the
Yes,
5?
it is.
I think
We
that should
kept it
go
on there.
out. That's burning a goal.
Unless everybody feels.
And we have to
differently.
do that anyway, so
Yeah.
why burn a goal on that, you know?
Well, it's up to the board. If you guys don't feel like that's.
We
something you
could put
wanna
it
do,
under planning.
It's up to you
What?
It's
guys.
under planning.
Now, you're going to do that anyway. It's by statute, right? So I wouldn't burn up one of the 5 just
Tom,
on
is-
that.
Sorry, is there a specific
Yeah.
couple of goals on your list that you
Sure,
wanted us to talk
sure,
about right
sure.
now?
Yeah. Complete the 2024-25 budget process in a timely manner and achieve a 0% increase in the budget. That's a goal.
That's a statutory requirement.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not a
With all
goal.
due respect.
Yeah, but the percentage increase isn't statutory, right?
Well, if you want to talk budget scenario, I mean.
Right,
You know, that charge. could be-
right.
That could be a charge to the finance committee and sends. Internally, as you set your agenda or your goal as a committee, you know, maybe the committee would be, you know, that's a good point. But I don't know, I mean, if you make that, I mean, you could, but I think it's really specific more to the budget. The budget process
Isn't that administration?
is directed by law, so no matter, you know, all those deadlines are set by the Department of Education. When you say in a timely manner, you know, the budget process is set in statute, doesn't change, you know, by March, a certain date, you have to have the adopted. But if you're talking about how you get to the budget and budget workshops, that's different, but that I think that could be, that challenge could go into the committee, right? I mean, I think, and then you could have workshops.
Well, how does it get, okay, that was one of the goals I had. We could complete, I mean, some of these are right in the book here. Complete an NJSBA policy wellness check, policy audit to ensure that the board's policy manual is current. Right? That could be a goal.
But are we doing a lot of our policies through the policy committee anyway?
Right.
Right? Are we doing all of that?
We did hire Strauss Esme to do an audit a couple of years ago, which is why there's been so many policy updates. So I don't know if you're envisioning an annual audit by Strauss Esme. I don't think members would do a policy audit individually or even as a committee. I think you would need some sort of expertise, like hire an auditor like Strauss Esme.
Right, but
Is that, Tom, is that something that is covered in the QSAC?
actually, I stole that one. All good ideas are stolen. That came right out of the things you can do to get board of certification. Okay, so if,
Thought we were gonna put that under
So-
professional development.
So maybe.
That's part of
what-
our goals is professional development, right?
right, I
is
don't
to
know.
do
I don't know what
certification.
you're including under professional development, but this is,
Well,
I have my list.
that's
Right,
why
okay,
everybody's gonna
so-
give their ideas.
All right, so maybe these
in the
are,
document.
you know, things you'd put on an action plan.
Yeah.
Comply with policy 0174 on legal services to help control legal services costs and achieve legal services costs per student equals the last year's state average. All
That's a
right,
budget issue.
And so I
Yeah,
know-
that's policy 0174.
About the report at the state level that shows cost per pupil being.
Yeah.
So, you'll probably be required in your 24-25 budget process to address, is usually, you know, taxpayers guide, I think is what they call it now. It's there for everybody to see. So I would think that somehow in the budget process, we can probably have to address that.
Well, policy 0174 says we're supposed to do it now. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's supposed to kick in as soon as you're over. We're at we're over the 130%. So
I didn't read,
I-
so you're saying that there are triggers that say if it comes out and you're over, I mean, the way to do it is. No, I'm not gonna, I'm not familiar with, so.
yeah, there's all sorts of things that kick in, like maintaining a log and having designated people to contact the attorney. There's other things too. You can look at the 0174.
That's probably, in most school districts, they have a policy that saves a lot of time. Designate, is it only the board president that contacts? I mean, that's for each board of education and policy.
That's what we have.
Yeah, we have a policy and so
For
one of the,
contacting the board attorney generally is the board president, because it costs money if all 8 members of your board are constantly contacting the board attorney. So most districts, in most boards, it is that the board president contacts the attorney.
okay, in our policy, there's like 4 people that can do it. You could, the next one, this could go under communications. Post, this one I found in another district, post answers to questions raised by the public at board meetings on the district website within 10 days of being asked. That would improve communications. So maybe that's an action plan item. All right.
Yeah, I think, yeah, Tom,
Yeah.
what we could do is some of the ones on your list,
Mhm.
if we can compile them, if we sort of go back to what were our sort of 5 high-level goal
Yeah.
ideas, if I can say that right now,
Okay.
and align them. So that one, to me, sounds like what we would, I think it was the second goal where we said like improve communication,
Right.
external, internal.
Yeah.
I would put that as sort of, an aspiration under that.
Yeah. Well, I did that before. I compiled this before tonight's meeting. Here's one: monitor enrollment projections in light of ongoing new housing. All right. We have a lot of I think we're going to be picking up new students. We need to
Right,
track
and
how well are our projections doing against what's actually happening.
right, and I'm actually going to meet with the mayor in a couple of weeks, and there's going to be a discussion to see if we have some more information on that. So that's
Okay.
something that we're going to be doing.
All right. I think this was in,
I don't know if that needs to be a board goal.
yeah, these are probably more like action items. Monitor NJ QSAC process and evaluate the results. I took that from another district. I think that's even in the book here too.
So Tom, with your
Yeah.
list, like we suggested,
Mhm.
we've come up with 5 sort of
Yeah,
main. Why don't you, when everybody sends the document, why don't you look at some of the stuff you want to do, and you can potentially send it under communications or under planning or
Hmm.
wherever you feel it should go.
all right. So
And then I
are we-
can
are we
compile
gonna-
a document.
So are we gonna get like a list of the 5? I was trying to keep track here, but
Yeah.
if we get a
Yeah.
list of 5,
So-
then I can map my 10.
Mrs. Reese is going to
Okay,
send that to me,
And
Right.
then you can send, yes.
and then I'm going to send it out to everybody and get everybody to
okay.
contribute
Right.
with
Okay.
their
All right,
ideas.
so I will
And then
take,
based on that, we'll come up with
all right, so I will
the
take
action plans.
my 10, which are probably gonna be less than 10, and map it into the 5 and send it to her.
Yep.
Okay,
I think that's how we plan to
Good.
do it, right? That's how we all agreed to do it, correct?
Just
Yes.
direct to you, no reply all.
No, and then I'll compile the document of everybody's information, and then we can make a decision at hopefully the November 16th board meeting.
Mhm.
We can decide and hopefully approve them at that meeting.
Right.
We'll have everything put together, and I
And
can send it out to
right,
everybody.
and as you're doing the action plan, keep in mind, you don't want it to be so cumbersome that
Okay.
all your efforts are towards achieving the action plan and not to what you need to do as a board by law, which is,
Correct.
different.
Right. Absolutely.
Patty, can you answer a question about norms again? When emails come to board members and the public expects us to reply to everything, but our policy, our norm is that only the board president responds to emails. Is that throughout the state?
the
Is that a norm?
Or the administration?
That
Or the
is-
administration.
That is
Or the
pretty
administration.
standard that the board,
Standard?
that the spokesperson for the board is the president. It should be in your bylaws. And the spokesperson for the district is the superintendent. So any discussion comes from either the board president or the superintendent, depending on
Okay.
what the question
We,
is.
we tend to get a lot of questions that are administration related, so
Mhm.
often Dr. Varley will reply to those because obviously we're governance and operations, so she has more detail that she can, reply to as opposed to the board knowing all that information.
Mhm.
So she does reply to
Right.
the emails.
And another, and it's not really a norm, but another, maybe misconception is when you have a board meeting that the public comment section is just that. It's for public comment. It's not it shouldn't be a discussion, or a back and forth. And if there's any response, that should come from either the board president, because all comments should be directed towards the board president.
Oh.
That is a common misunderstanding. And it's frustrating for the public because you can't answer on the fly because you may not have the information. But there's also, you have business as a board that you must conduct at every meeting. And so you need to, that's the purpose of the board meeting, is to conduct the business.
Okay, yeah. And I
Thank you.
mean, obviously the administration can answer some of those questions as well, right? And is the business administrator also allowed to, our business administrator will sometimes answer questions that may be related to something that falls under finance or
Well, and generally,
facilities.
the questions are.
They are directed to me,
you, and
but
that, toss it if you.
I will then
if,
ask if,
if they feel they can answer it or address it. Sometimes boards take notes during the public comment section, and then things that can be answered by staff or the board president happen just after they close public comments.
right, that's what we do. That's how we do it.
But and if you can, you should, if it can't be answered at the table because you may not have the information, and you certainly don't want to give out wrong information or misinformation. You could set a norm of that person, leave their contact information, and within a specified time frame, whatever that may be, that's realistic. Somebody will get back to them with an answer to their question. Or if you want to say if the superintendent or BA wants to say, give me your contact information, I'll reach out to you. Whatever, those are the kinds of norms that you might have.
Okay,
I think see a board, they actually had a sign up sheet when you came to talk. You actually put down your name and your email address.
that's a good idea.
That way, yeah, I thought that
Mm.
was convenient because
That's a good
sometimes
idea.
people ask questions and it's like, well, how do we get back to them? Because we don't necessarily know how to contact them. And we've talked about maybe making a spreadsheet, but then that takes, it's time consuming for our staff. But maybe if we had like something like that in our norms,
Yeah,
right? where people
I
would
like
actually
that.
Put their email address, that way, anything that did come up, we could say, oh, this is.
Right.
And follow up the next day.
that's a good
Yes.
idea. I think that's a great idea. I like that. Yeah. Okay, so do you want to just clarify also just for Tom and those who may, just to clarify what our 5 goals are? So we all walk away here knowing what they are,
Yep.
and then everybody knows what they can actually send information on their action plans under each of those goals.
Okay, what I have is, the board will improve planning and the committee structure. For one, the board will improve communication, both internally and externally. The, board will complete the, CSA evaluation on time. The board will support the district, will provide will support and provide the resources necessary for the district goals. And I have something about professional development. Did you want to say for professional development or just a generic, the
Like-
board is committed to, continued professional development?
Yeah, we could do that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that sounds
Okay.
good.
Because we could put under there, the individual certifications
Certification,
or the
yes.
board academy or whatever is a part of
Whatever,
action.
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
What everybody feels,
Or
you
training
know, is
sessions.
necessary. Trainings, potential workshops, whatever, yeah. We
Right.
could put that underneath there so
Right.
that we can have an idea of
Mhm.
how we want to work through that. Okay. All right, I think, are we all in agreement? Everybody in agreement? We're good?
Yes.
And we're going to, so we're going to compile the document and then we're going to have that ready for the November 16th board meeting so that we can hopefully approve it then, once everybody's agreed upon it.
And can I just ask, how many action items should there be under a goal?
That's a good question.
Because if
It could be long.
Tom, if you're going to put 10 under a goal, oh man.
That's actually a good question.
So how many do you suggest?
How do we?
50 to
I-
100.
I wouldn't
50
have,
to 100.
yeah, I wouldn't have a long list, 2 to 3 to 4 maybe.
So
Okay,
action items.
four.
4 action plans
And
under
then-
each goal.
Right, it's something that, I mean, you certainly want it to be a reach, but achievable. Like, you don't want them to be so easy that you can, well, the CSA, although for some districts, the CSA evaluation is not easy because they don't get it done on time. But, you want it to be a reach, but achievable
Within a year.
within your, well, and it's really less time now.
Yes,
Yeah.
now we have less than a
Now we're
year.
looking at,
I mean,
August.
and then when you review the board
State
goals next summer after the board self-evaluation,
July.
then some you may decide to continue with a few more different action plan items. And some we say, we've done that. Like if you've done the committee structure and you're happy with that, you can check that off. But whittling down to either less committees or different committee structure could take longer than a year.
so some of these could potentially be ongoing. So if we
Yes.
get to August or July
Right.
and we go through it and we want to continue with some of them, we can
Right.
keep those on as a
Right.
goal to continue through.
Think the CS1 brought the CSA one broader, so we could make that an action item under those.
Sorry, say that again.
So like if we make that.
You get your mic, can you use your mic? Sorry, I can't hear. I couldn't hear you.
If we make the goal for the CSA a little broader, like board operations, and then put underneath there, the CSA as an action, like evaluate so that way we could put other action items under that goal.
Okay, so she's saying instead of having the CSA evaluation as a goal,
Have
And
it
the
as an action
timeline.
item.
have that operations, did you say?
Yeah, like if we had like improve board operations, and then under one of the action items would be
The CSA evaluation.
CSA evaluation on a timely matter. I don't know, something else, but so that way we could use that goal effectively for our 10 action items.
Yeah, you could have something like
5,
time,
4,
timely
not 10.
evaluation.
4.
No, you could have a goal like timely performance of state required things.
Yeah, we
Okay.
don't want 10, 4.
No, the goal could be the timely performance. I mean, this is probably part of CUSEC actually of
Yeah.
state required things, right? And then one of these is the CSA evaluation as the action item.
Okay, so how does the board feel about potentially making one of the goals, instead of it being the CS sort of operations, board operations, and then add that as an action plan underneath?
The question I have is how would the operations be different than the board will improve planning and committee
Yeah.
structure?
Like that was kind of under that, wasn't it? Planning and operations.
I mean, you could put the CSA under the planning. I mean, there's, you're evaluating the superintendent by July 1. And they should, part of their evaluation is progress towards the district goals, which they should be reporting out periodically, so you know what you're evaluating.
Leave that one and we'll put the other action items under one
Okay,
plan.
so we'll just leave it as it is. Okay.
I
So-
suggest keeping it as simple as possible.
I
since
agree.
We
It gets
have
too
less than
complicated.
a year to do
Yeah.
this and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, for your first year out, and then you see how.
first year, we're just
how-
trying this.
How
We're,
you've
we're being
achieved-
very adventurous.
I will, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, let's go with the 5 that
Yeah, I
we just
agree.
talked about.
Yeah.
As we start putting down the action plans,
Plans.
we will figure out, whoops, this isn't working, or there might be a slightly different way that we could
Mhm.
word it. I think it's gonna evolve.
And you'll probably find that as we go through it, everybody will have a different idea of maybe where their action plan falls.
Yes.
So Jordan may have one under communication and somebody else may have it under operations or, whatever. So we'll have to figure that one out too.
And also keep in mind that when you get to the action plans and when you get to vote on you bring it to a board for a vote, everybody should agree on the action plan items, by consensus. You should all, it shouldn't be everybody's personal list, but if everybody needs to agree on what goes into that.
Agreed.
If we are lifting the CSA language as is, I will say there are probably a couple elements in here that maybe we have not followed to a T. So not a bad thing if we decide to keep that
Sure.
as is and just hold ourselves accountable to that. So
Okay.
good idea, Tom.
Patty, are you saying that when we vote on this, it should be unanimous? Someone can't abstain or vote against it? No?
No.
Has to be the majority.
Majority.
You
Okay.
always have your voice.
Right.
That's your right. I'm just saying what gets into it should by consensus. And then you vote on.
And that will be determined as everybody sends their list, everybody will have their action plans. I'll be able to see everybody having similar action plans under, and if there's some discrepancies, obviously, then, we can have
And
a
it may
conversation.
necessitate another discussion
Correct.
before you actually finalize it.
Well, we're going to try for November
Yeah,
16th.
But you never lose your.
Let's
right to-
target 16. I agree. Let's go for it.
90% there,
Yeah.
and then,
Right.
At least we have
The goal
We have
is
December to
16.
fall back on if we don't
A
manage. to
first
get
reading
it.
of a policy. There you go.
Yeah.
We get it. We get it. If we don't,
At least we've got December then to fall back on.
Yeah.
Right,
I
so
agree.
that does give you, you have a meeting in December?
We do. So I think we should target November 16th.
The goal is the 16th of November, and then if necessary, you still have one more meeting.
Correct.
To come.
If
to
we-
cons-
If we can't
Right.
come to consensus, we can
And
always have
then
another meeting.
Remember, at that point, you're having maybe 7 months to achieve the goal. So keep that in mind when
Correct.
you're looking at the action plans. Right? Even if you do it in November, if you're going to do the goals over the summer, 6, 7, 8 months for the first year timeout. Then from there on in, you'll get on that cycle and you'll have the year.
Okay. All right.
Can we use your template that you gave us yes, so if we all have that blank
That's why I gave you
template.
the template.
Do we
Yeah.
all, I sent it to everybody, right?
Yeah, and Patty just gave us a blank one, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes, I
this-
gave you a blank one. That's why I gave that. So
Right.
to make it easier.
So we need 5 of these.
I think everybody,
We'll make copies or
yeah. Oh,
5 of these for the.
do you want me to
books.
send it on an email? That way,
I
Each
can
person
send you an
can-
electron.
then you can all just, make your own copies.
I can send an electronic copy.
Okay. And then everybody can make their own copies.
let's just do this electronically.
Yeah.
I agree. And then everybody can make their own copies if they want, if they feel that's how they want to do it. Okay, so if everybody's in agreement, we're planning to hopefully approve them, or the plan is to try on November 16th. I think we're ready to move on to the public comment section. So anybody else have anything last to say, discuss before we move on to public comment? We're all good?
Do we need to vote on these
No.
5 or we're just? done?
No,
No
we don't.
action, right.
The option to vote was in case we all
Okay.
came up with a whole bunch and thought, oh, this is great, we all happy
Got
to vote. I mean, no, we can vote on it next November or maybe December if it comes down to that. Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Reese. Appreciate your time.
Thank you,
Um,
Patty.
This has been a process for us, so we appreciate next year we'll be a lot
It
better
is,
at it.
You
you know?
guys, you did a lot of hard work tonight. This is a first step in a process. And I think you should commend yourselves and congratulate yourselves for doing the hard work tonight. You got to start somewhere. And I think you came up with some really valuable goals.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Okay. All right, can we move on to the public session? Yep. Okay, so during this portion of the meeting, district residents and staff are invited to address the Board of Education on any item. The board requests that individuals state their name and town of residence or school of attendance for the record. All comments should be directed to the board president, and depending on the nature and the complexity of the question, it may or not be answered during the meeting by the administration. If so, the response could occur after this public portion of the meeting has concluded. Although the board may not respond to all items raised during the public forum, all public comments will be considered. The board asks that the members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals in speaking. Specifically, comments regarding personnel matters are discouraged and cannot be responded to by the board. Students and employees have specific legal rights afforded by the laws of New Jersey. The board bears no responsibility, nor it will be liable for any comments made by members of the public. Please know that if any member of the public becomes disruptive during the meeting, the board president may terminate the participant's statement. Continued disruptions may result in removal from or adjournment of the meeting. Each speaker's statements will be limited to 3 minutes in duration. So please, anybody who has any comments, if you'd like to come to the board, state your name. No? Sorry, can we have it with us? Okay. You have it with us? Okay. Okay. Okay, how do you start it?
Well, you know what, I can do it on my phone.
Okay,
You'll trust me. I have 3 minutes on my phone.
we'll trust him.
Sure.
Okay. You ready?
It won't take more than 3 minutes.
Oh, okay, good.
So Natasha Jolly, Berkeley Heights. I do appreciate very much being able to sit in on this discussion. I think it's important. I would just say that as you think about your board goals, especially when it comes to communication, I would add transparency to that. And when you think about committees and anything, any action plans that touch upon minutes. Of the minutes that I've seen that we've had to Oprah, there's a couple of things. Number one, sometimes the minutes just say things X, Y, and Z was discussed. So if I was a board member and I wasn't at that meeting, I would have no idea what the meeting was about. So the idea is to, when you approve the minutes, and I don't know how that's done, but that when they're disseminated to the rest of the board, that you're actually able to understand what was covered, what was discussed, the back and forth, and if ultimately there was a recommendation, maybe it wasn't that kind of meeting, but so that, if you missed it, you know what was going on. And to the extent that minutes can be published, to the public, again, I've gotten minutes via Oprah that they had 0 redactions. So there are minutes that can be published that do not have sensitive information. And I think it will serve to provide transparency, and it would greatly reduce the number of Oprah requests and this kind of, perception that there is a lack of transparency. I also like the idea that I heard somebody say about responding or publishing answers to questions, maybe within like a 10-day period, because that'll give people like the time to research the answer if they don't know it at the time that the question is asked. So if that can somehow be thought of when you're thinking about the goals and any specific action steps, that would really be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else?
Hi, Shauna Williams, Berkeley Heights. First off, I would like to thank Mr. Hyman for saying listening sessions. Huge part of the problem and part of the frustration is that we don't feel like we're heard. And I find it kind of interesting that we're talking about a norm of no back and forth because, if we look back at the board meeting that was happening just prior to COVID, there actually was a lot of back and forth going on. And I think lack of that has kind of contributed to why communication is a problem. So it was nice to hear that. I think listening is very important. I have a request maybe for the curriculum committee, and I don't know how far you can go with this, just because I don't know what the role of the curriculum committee is. So, to your point about, having something structured that says this committee will be responsible for doing this would be great. Basically, it's around building the thinking classroom. I don't know how many of you have kids who have been involved with class that uses building thinking classroom. We're second year now with this, and the kids really are still struggling. I don't know if it's something that can be addressed with the curriculum committee. If you can put forth recommendations, again, where the line is, but as to how often it's used, what portion of the day is spent using BTC, just if it's something that falls under the purview of the curriculum committee, it would be really appreciated if you guys could look at that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay. I will then,
I'm sorry, Angela.
sorry,
Is this meeting today available on Zoom? Meaning, are people listening and are they
yes.
able to ask questions as well, or this is view only?
This is where our standard format meetings are held.
So not on Zoom, then just on YouTube,
Um,
right? Because I was a little confused because I thought I saw two links, a Zoom meeting link and a YouTube link. So I'm just curious, are people on the Zoom and wanting to ask questions, if at all? That's
It is a
possible?
Zoom link, I believe, but there's no interactive feature. There's no interactive
I think-
feature, right?
So it's
I
not,
think it's on Zoom
It
now
is.
and will be posted to YouTube at that link
Right.
later.
sorry, but the Zoom link is not an interactive.
No,
Zoom
it's not
meeting.
interactive. It's not interactive. It is a Zoom link, but it's not interactive. Yeah, so people can see it and it will be posted onto YouTube. Good. Okay, so moving to close the public comment section, moving on to new business. Anybody have any new business? No? Okay. No? Okay, then I would like to make an emotion to adjourn. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Okay, meeting adjourned.